Welcome to episode number 43 of the Phillies Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Harper. Today we have a lot to talk about, a really big series win for the Phillies, sweeping out the San Diego Padres at Citizens Bank Park. But before we get started, I want to remind you to make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to turn on notifications so you never know when I release a video. We have Substack Saturday starting tomorrow. Talk about the CBA, the lockout, the salary cap. We'll be back here on Sunday after the White Sox series before the Phillies go north of the border to face the Blue Jays. And then we'll also be back here on Monday for another Around the Bases podcast. And if you did miss it, last night I released another Around the Bases podcast talking about my All-Star predictions. So make sure to check that out. But today we are here to talk about the Philadelphia Phillies and how good they have been playing recently. We're going to start with this series. They played the San Diego Padres Tuesday night at Citizens Bank Park, opened up the series. They played the Padres last week and swept them, so they're looking for the same luck in this series. Tuesday, Aaron Nola looked really, really good. And I'll put it this way. When he still has it, he could go. He's still one of the better pitchers in baseball when Aaron Nola's on that level. And he had one of his best starts of the 2026 season on Tuesday night. 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 0 walks, and 8 strikeouts. And the only runs he gave up were on a Gavin Sheets 2-run home run earlier in the game. So Aaron Nola looked really, really good. Back-to-back really good starts. He had a pretty solid start of 6 innings in San Diego. He gave up 2 runs in that one. So this one, just more of the same for Aaron Nola. And if the Phillies could get an Aaron Nola who's on the level of what he's been in the past, like 2018, even for most of his career, if the Phillies could get an Aaron Nola on the level for what he's been for the most of his career, and you add that on to what they already have in their pitching rotation, it makes the team 10 times more dangerous than it already is. With honestly, I would just say a healthy Aaron Nola. Last year he wasn't really healthy. He was dealing with the rib injury, kind of hurt his progress throughout the entire season. This year he had his bad starts, but all pitchers have bad starts. But really, he has been at a better level that we've seen out of Aaron Nola in the past, and I think he can still get to that level. And if he can for the Phillies, that would be a major boost, because you think about it, right? You have Christopher Sanchez, who we're going to talk about a little bit, who's been incredible. You have Zach Wheeler, who's been incredible. Jesus Luzardo has been really, really good. Then you add Aaron Nola onto that. That's one of the best four-man rotations in all of baseball, and that's saying the Phillies don't go out at the deadline and add another starting pitcher. I know they've been rumored to trade for Tarek Skubal, which I think would be, an interesting decision. I don't think it would make sense for the Phillies to do that. But again, if they went out and traded for another starting pitcher, now you have 5 really good starting pitchers, almost like last year's team where you had Ranger Suarez added to the mix of the other 4. And you also still have Andrew Painter, who has been very good when being caught by JT Realmuto, so he could play a factor either in the postseason or through the rest of this regular season stretch. But I would say if Aaron Nola could get to the level that he's been playing at these last couple of weeks, it's going to be a really nice ride for the Phillies and Nola as we get through, the month of June, July, into the back end of the regular season. Next, Bryce Harper with a 2-run home run. He also scored the game-winning run scoring on a double play. And Harper has just been incredible. I'm going to make all-star cases for everybody a little later in the episode, but he is definitely someone who I believe should be a National League all-star again for the Philadelphia Phillies. What he's been able to do this season is just incredible. He's a big reason why the Phillies are in the position they are in, him and Kyle Schwarber and Brandon Marsh. And talking about Brandon Marsh, he also went 4 for 4 against the Padres, had a stolen base, and the Phillies have bumped Marsh up to the 4th spot in their lineup, and they've kind of reworked it since Don Mattingly's taken over. Kyle Schwarber now leading off, Trey Turner batting 2nd, Bryce Harper 3rd, and Brandon Marsh 4th, and then you see, either Bohm 5th, JT 5th. You mix that 5 spot around. Usually the 6th spot is Marsh. So the Phillies have really kind of worked around their lineup a little more, and it's worked out very well. Kyle Schwarber's still putting up great numbers. Had a home run on Wednesday. We'll get to that in a minute. Trey Turner, he's still starting off on a slow start, but again, he's never had the best fast starts, especially in 2023 when he was in his first year in Philly. Didn't have the best fast start. It kind of took him a while to get going, but he got going, and when he got going, it was really, really good. You have Bryce Harper, who's had a really good year, and Brandon Marsh, who, in my opinion, should definitely be an all-star. So your top four is really important. If you add a piece at the deadline, maybe it would be like a right-handed outfield bat, but that would be about it, honestly. The Phillies are in a really good position lineup-wise, and this series, you see Harper with his 2-run home run. We'll get to everybody else a little bit in a couple minutes. But when you look at what this series looked like for the Phillies offense, it was a big building block if they could keep this up into this weekend series against the White Sox. The Phillies bullpen was solid once again against the Padres on Tuesday night, in between Jose Alvarado, Ari Kukering, Brad Keller, and Johan Duran. 4 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Duran had 3 Ks and he had another save, his 13th save of the season, and the Phillies bullpen has really been a big reason why they found so much success recently, because all these guys are getting outs, especially, Orion Kekering, Brad Keller, and Johan Duran. All 3 of them have been really, really good this season. Alvarado, his ERA is a little higher, but he's been on the more unlucky side. His FIP is a sub-3 FIP. That means, that's fielding independent pitching. So you look at, his ERA might be high, but his FIP is relatively low, which is really good for relievers. So when I look at this bullpen, I would say it's a really good back end. But I'll talk about it a little more later and when we talk about Thursday's game. But I would definitely say that, it wouldn't hurt to add another bullpen arm at the deadline. Now on to Wednesday's game. Christopher Sanchez was incredible again, and I think this is a great time to take a moment to recognize how great Christopher Sanchez has been this season. Christopher Sanchez has been the best pitcher in baseball. He leads MLB in ERA. He leads MLB in quality starts. He's second in Major League Baseball in strikeouts at 103. He leads MLB in innings pitched. He leads MLB as well in almost every statistical pitching category. He had a 50-inning scoreless streak that just got snapped, which is the 5th longest in Major League Baseball. He has the longest scoreless streak for any left-handed pitcher in Major League Baseball history, and the longest scoreless streak for any Philly in Major League Baseball history. There's no way you can say he's not the best pitcher in baseball right now. You have Jacob Mizorowski, who's a very good pitcher, but Christopher Sanchez is just that much better. Sanchez is a better finesse pitcher. He's getting more outs. Mizorowski and Sanchez had a very close May. Sanchez won the pitcher of the month, which he deserved. And I personally think it's not even close when it comes to Mizorowski and Sanchez over the Cy Young Award. Sanchez has a better ERA. He's pitched in more innings. The strikeout numbers are pretty close. Sanchez has had more quality starts. You can't say that Sanchez isn't a better pitcher than Jacob Mizorowski. He's always been a better pitcher than Jacob Mizorowski. Even last year when they didn't give Sanchez the All-Star recognition and they gave it to Mizorowski, Sanchez was still a better pitcher. And this year he's just proving it even more how much of a better pitcher he is than Jacob Mizorowski. And what Christopher Sanchez did on Wednesday night was big for the Phillies. 7 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 8 Ks, lowers his ERA to a 1.46 on the season, which, like I said, leads Major League Baseball out of all qualified pitchers, because there is Shohei Ohtani, but he's not qualified, and that's why he doesn't really deserve to win the Cy Young Award compared to a guy like Christopher Sanchez, who's pitched in almost 30 more innings compared to Shohei Ohtani. Because Ohtani has, he's not qualified. Sanchez has about 3 or 4 more starts than Shohei Ohtani, right? So Sanchez is really running away with the National League Cy Young, in my opinion. A lot of media members have tried to, skew Sanchez's stats compared to others, giving more props to Shohei, giving more props to Mizorowski, but the clear Cy Young favorite right now should be Christopher Sanchez. Like I said, he leads the MLB in ERA. He leads the MLB. He's second in the MLB in strikeouts. He leads the MLB in quality starts. He just had the 5th longest scoreless streak in MLB history. That you don't see that every day, and Christopher Sanchez just did that. You don't see that in any other pitcher. He is the best pitcher in baseball. He's the best pitcher in the National League, and he should definitely be the National League Cy Young Award winner. But to get off my soapbox, Sanchez was incredible again, and he was a big reason why the Phillies got the win on Wednesday. The scoreless streak was snapped, like I said, on a Jackson Merrill single, scoring Ty France in the 7th inning, but Christopher Sanchez had one of his best starts. Another great start for Christopher Sanchez. Kyle Schwarber hit his 23rd home run of the season as he pushes to be the National League starting designated hitter in the All-Star game. He's just having another incredible season. Still leads Major League Baseball in home runs. His pace has kind of slowed a little bit, but he's still blasting balls all out of the ballpark. Again, like I said, his 23rd of the season. You also have a JT Realmuto with his third home run of the season, a go-ahead home run in the seventh inning. Also, a really positive side was Adolis Garcia, an RBI double. He's tried kind of turning it around, I would say, for the Phillies. He came in on Monday to hit on his off day. He's really struggling. Didn't have a hit on the entire West Coast road trip. Came back home, had a hit on Wednesday night, and then we'll get to his home run on Thursday. But the Phillies, if they could get him going, that would be big. Because you already know, in the postseason, he has showed up. If he could show up in the regular season, too, get back to that 2023 form, the Phillies are going to start rolling at a really good pace. Then you also have Johan Duran had another save, his 14th of the season, as he looks like he's going to have another All-Star appearance on his resume. And now, finally, the finale of the series on Thursday. The Phillies win 6-4. The offense is coming alive. They had a really good homestand against the San Diego Padres, 12 runs in the series. First time they scored over 5 runs since May 18th with the win yesterday with their 6-4 win. The first time since the Pittsburgh series that they scored over 5 runs. That's a while. That's a long time without scoring over 5 runs, but the Phillies finally broke that streak. Zach Wheeler, again, incredible. Another person who should be an all-star on the Phillies. 7 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 8 Ks. ERA went up a little bit, but again, this was only his 8th start. He also had a no-hitter into the 6th inning. Bryce Johnson broke it up, but Zach Wheeler, he has been incredible. I don't think most people would imagine that he could be this good coming back from an injury so serious, but he's come back and stepped in right into what on most teams would be the ace role. But when you have one of the best pitcher in Major League Baseball, Christopher Sanchez, you could settle as the second best pitcher. The Phillies are lucky to have a guy like Zach Wheeler who's able to pitch every 5 days, go 7 innings, and not have any major issues. The Phillies are also lucky to have a guy like Jesus Luzardo, who didn't start in this Padres series. He starts tonight against the White Sox, who he could easily be, the second best pitcher and ace on most major league staffs. His ERA is a little high, but he gets very unlucky. He got unlucky last year. Same thing this year. He could easily be an ace or a second best pitcher on a lot of major league staffs too. So the Phillies are really lucky to have a lot of these really good starting pitchers. A guy like Aaron Nola, just a couple years ago, was the second best pitcher on the Phillies rotation. He's kind of fell back. It's like the 4th spot, but he still has that second best pitcher potential. Like, that's what the Phillies have in the grasp of their hands, and they put themselves in a really good position with all the starting pitching they have, especially when you look at Zach Wheeler being able to come back and do what he's been able to do this season. Now we also look at, like I talked about, Adolis Garcia, his first home run in over a month. He needed it. He needed it big time. He is starting to, if he can start to hit his stride, like I said, it would be huge for the Phillies. He really needed that home run, and he pimped it beautifully. I'm very excited if we could get some Adolis bombs in the postseason, get some pips with it too. If we play the Braves or the Dodgers, I think that would make, they call Citizens Bank Park the Loud House. I think that would make the Loud House a little bit louder if Adolis Garcia could have some nice bat flips and pips during the postseason. But the Phillies, if they have Adolis hitting like that in the postseason, it's going to be a dangerous team to get out when everybody's hitting on the same cylinders, especially Adolis Garcia. I think he's going to be a big part of what this team could do going down the stretch into October. His defense has been incredible. He's been one of the best defenders in Major League Baseball this season. He's been a much improvement over past right fielders. Defensively, even though it doesn't really matter what the past outfielder says, but Garcia has been one of the best defensively, and you also have his bat. If his bat warms up, it's gonna be fun times in South Philadelphia for the Phillies. You also needed that sweep. It doesn't really get bigger than getting a sweep against the Padres, a season series sweep against San Diego. San Diego's now behind you in the wild card standings. And if it comes down the stretch, you want to have these tiebreakers. The tiebreakers are so important going down the stretch. Now the Phillies have a big one against San Diego. Jose Alvarado was actually, yesterday was the first time he allowed a home run to a center fielder in his career. Jackson Merrill got a 2-run shot off of him in the ninth inning, made things a little bit closer, a little too close for comfort, I would say, and that's been a case for the Phillies throughout the entire season. So I think it wouldn't hurt to get another guy at the back end of the bullpen. You just got to look through the trade market. Depends on what Detroit does. Is Kyle Finnegan available out of Detroit? There's a lot of guys who, their teams might be out of the race. Will they be available? The Phillies have to look into that. I would say adding another back-end guy would be perfect. I don't think they really need to do what they did last year, making the big splash to get a guy like Johan Duran. But if you get like another solid back-end of the bullpen, pitch in the 7th, 8th, 6th inning even, I think that would be really key for the Phillies to be able to get that, add to the back end to make the bullpen even stronger and more fortified. So like I said, the Phillies with the season series sweep of the San Diego Padres, and I gotta say that's what's in, right? If you never heard that song, don't look it up. It's not worth it. But the Phillies are 23-7 against the Padres since the fans decided to make that before Game 1 of the 2022 NLCS, and it might be one of the biggest mistakes in Padres history because the Phillies have been a different animal against them since. I also want to say Nick Castellanos was designated for assignment by the San Diego Padres on Wednesday. The Padres are cold, man. They decided to basically cut him in the middle of the series, returning to Philadelphia. They didn't play him on Tuesday, and I was a little interested by the decision to not play him on Tuesday. And then they cut him the next day. They DFA'd him the next day, potentially ending his major league career. He hasn't been playing well with San Diego, and he's not playing every day. He wasn't happy about playing every day. He obviously had the opportunity. The Phillies gave him, wasn't a tribute video, but they showed the 3 sliding catches he made during the 2022 World Series on the big screen, and the fans gave him a nice round of applause, in the middle of innings, but he never got up to bat. He has been playing well this season. He, obviously had a chance to talk to the media in Philadelphia. Said they don't understand. He didn't understand, the personality types didn't fit in. But I guess he didn't realize his baseball reference page is a public page to show, how, inconsistent he was in Philadelphia and how bad he was defensively in Philadelphia. But his major league career could easily be over. I don't know if there is a team that will take a flyer on Nick Castellanos at this point in time. The Phillies are still on the books for paying him. Now San Diego will also be on the books to pay him. Whoever picks him up next would also be on the books to pay him. So I can't blame a guy for getting his money. But again, I this might be the end of the road for Nick Castellanos. But the Padres did him dirty, did him cold, cutting him during the middle of the Phillies series. Could not believe that when the news came out on Wednesday. But that wraps up the series recap. Now time to look at what the Phillies are doing postseason-wise. They're 33-29 for the first time this season. They are 4 games over 500. Since going into the series, the best they've been was over 2 games over 500. They hit 3 Wednesday, now 4 on Thursday. They have tied for the second wild card spot in the National League with Arizona and St. Louis, but they lose tiebreakers to both, which is kind of big. So right now, if the season did end today, the Phillies would be on the outside looking in. The MLB got rid of game 163 a couple years ago, the tiebreaker game. They got rid of it, so the Phillies will, have to win the last spot or second to last spot outright. Can't go down to a tiebreaker at the end of the day. But again, they're only a half game back out of the top wildcard spot. That's the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Phillies have the season series so far over Pittsburgh. They swept them in Pittsburgh. If they win one game, they play at the end of the month. If they win one game against Pittsburgh in Philadelphia, they have the season series there. So the Phillies, for the first time since April 6th, 10 games into the season, they were 6-4 then. Now they're in a playoff spot. And I think it's just crazy. If you told any Phillies fan when, after that Atlanta game, they were 9-19, just fired Rob Thompson. If you told any Phillies fan that they'd be 33-29 at the beginning of June, they would have called you crazy. I would have called you crazy. I did not really see a world where the Phillies could be this good over a month span. 24-10 in their last 34 games is kind of ridiculous with how good of baseball they have been playing. They've been playing good teams too. They played the Dodgers, played the Padres twice, right? They've played teams that are competing for wild card spots. They played the A's. They played Cleveland, Cincinnati. So they haven't been playing, scrubs. They played Pittsburgh, so and now they're in a position where if they could keep playing this type of baseball the rest of the way, they will most likely be in October playing in the playoffs, whether it's going to St. Louis, going to Pittsburgh, going to San Diego, Arizona, hosting any of those teams. The Phillies are putting themselves in a really good position. Only thing that hurts, like I talked about in the last episode, is that they have some losses in the tiebreaker column. They don't have the season series over Chicago. The series against Cincinnati, the series against Arizona, those two are going to be huge because they don't have the tiebreakers over them yet. And then also the series against St. Louis, that will have a little more time because you don't know if they're going to be, how long they're going to be able to keep it up necessarily when it comes to their record. But if they keep it up into August, those two series in Busch Stadium and then at Citizens Bank Park, those 3-game series are going to be huge for both teams to get a tiebreaker like that. Phillies, if they they're very close to a tiebreaker over Pittsburgh, have the tiebreaker over San Diego. They need a series win to at least split with Arizona. Same thing against Cincinnati. Those series come later in the season, but those are going to be really big for the Phillies when it comes to trying to get into the postseason. But right now, they are rolling. They are 7-2 in their last 9 games, 4-1 in their last 5. Everything is clicking on the right page for the Phillies. It can't really get in a better position than what they are right now. They're playing really good baseball. Obviously, it will get a little tougher. The matchups will get a little tougher. These next 3 are a little tough. You're right, starting with Chicago tonight, and then they go to Toronto and then Milwaukee. But if they could, another 6-3, 7-2 stretch, Phillies are going to be putting themselves in a really, really good position. And part of that is also they're winning a lot of one-run games. They're 14-5 in one-run games this season, which is the most wins in one-run games in Major League Baseball. That's how they've been able to really get their bread and butter this season, has been in one-run games. And obviously it's a little concerning that you want to win games by more, but if you're winning the one-run games right now, you want to keep it that way. You want to keep winning those one-run games. You have the bullpen to do it. You have the starting pitching to do it. You got to keep winning those one-run games. All right, now it's time for a new series I'm going to call Down on the Farm, talking about some of the Phillies prospects right now. First is Aidan Miller. There's a little bit of concern. He's diagnosed with some pain and inflammation in the lumbar spine, so he's undergoing a procedure today. To get that fixed. It's going to be a 6 to 8 week recovery. The Phillies hope to have him playing in August, the latest. He is yet to appear in a major league and in a baseball game this season. He didn't appear in spring training. And then Bryce Harper dropped that note about, is Aidan Miller, hurt, get off his butt, right, and all that stuff. And then it ended up being where he was hurt, he couldn't play all spring training. The Phillies had him doing baseball activities. Pain just kept getting worse. It's been ongoing since the start of spring training. Like I said, they're getting a procedure done today to hopefully address the issue. He's the Phillies' number 1 prospect, right, with Painter and Crawford recently graduating the prospect pipeline. So now it comes down to, Aidan Miller's the last piece of that big 3, the big 3 core that the Phillies have when it comes to their prospects. I think they had big plans for Aidan Miller this year and potentially coming up to the major league level. I just don't think that's going to happen realistically anymore at this point, unless he comes back and has a really good recovery. He's back by, July, and he tears the cover off the baseball. The Phillies have to call him up when rosters expand in September. I just don't think it's in the Phillies' best interest to have him up this season, have him more like a Crawford and a Painter starting from the beginning of the season, potentially next year if we have baseball 2028, whatever it is. I think that would benefit Aidan Miller the most. I just don't really see a spot where he could fit in on the team right now with everybody hitting so well. It's like, who do you take out of the lineup? Do you take Alec Bohm out of the lineup? You don't really want to do that. Where is Aidan Miller going to play? Are you going to keep him at third? Are you going to try to keep him at shortstop, even though you do have Trey Turner? The Phillies have talked about putting him in the outfield. He has experience in the outfield when he was much younger, so the Phillies, have really floated around. He wants to play in the outfield to get up to the roster. The Phillies haven't really floated that idea around, but that's a bridge they could cross if they wanted to. So I think Aidan Miller, he probably won't be up this season, but I think the procedure today is going to be a big indicator of where we're going to be going in his direction for this season. And hopefully it's something that can get fixed really, really fast. Second prospect I want to talk about is Gage Wood. He made his 3rd start the other night at Double-A Reading. With Reading, he has a 2.45 ERA in 11 innings, 3 starts, 14 Ks, 1 walk, and a 1.09 whip. The starts have not been long so far for Gage Wood in Double A. His most recent start was the other day, earlier this week. 4 innings, 4 hits, 1 run was on a home run, no walks, 4 strikeouts. So the innings he's not going that long. He has 2 starts of 4 innings, 1 start of 3 innings in Double A, but they've been quality starts. They've been good starts when he's on the mound, even though they're not long periods of being on the mound. That is something I think is going to be interesting to watch with Gage Wood. Is the question, how much will he be able to pitch? How many times will he be taking the mound? And I think personally that, if the Phillies build him up to be a starter, he could be fill in really well into the rotation. But if not, they could also make him, a reliever. He pitched really well last year in Arkansas in the College World Series, starting that no hitter. The question is, how will the Phillies utilize him when he becomes a major league ready pitcher? All right, now I think it's time to talk about the All-Star game. Like I said earlier in the podcast, yesterday I made my All-Star roster predictions on Around the Bases. But I want to make my case for every single Philadelphia Philly who has a chance to be voted into the All-Star game. First, got to talk about Bryce Harper. The numbers are clear for MV3, for the showman. He's second in all first basemen in home runs this season. He's driving in runs. When you look at his numbers compared to all the other first basemen outside of Matt Olson, he leads in almost every statistical category. I personally think the choice is really clear when it comes to Bryce Harper. He's heads and shoulders above everyone else besides, Matt Olson for National League All-Star. And I think he has a really good chance to be in it. I think he definitely deserves to be one of the finalists to be a starter for the National League All-Star team at first base. You look at a guy like Alec Boehm, and people, the Phillies and Boehm have had a interesting relationship. He hasn't had the best season, but his defense is really good. And when Alec Boehm is hitting, he's hitting well. You look at his stats over the past month, he's been really, really good. I personally believe Alec Boehm definitely has a shot to be an All-Star. He has a very good shot, I would say. I would say he's a very good shot, but I think he has a chance to be an All-Star. You never know what could happen, but it doesn't hurt to vote Alec Boehm into the All-Star game. You look at a guy like JT Realmuto. The offensive numbers might not be as good, but the importance to the pitching staff can't be put in a stat. You look at how good the pitchers have pitched when he has caught them, especially when you look at a guy like Andrew Painter. A sub-4, 3.5 ERA when catching Andrew Painter. When you look at Andrew Painter's numbers with other catchers, it shows how valuable JT Realmuto is to the Phillies and to the Phillies pitching staff. The offense might not be there, even though he just jacked another homer on the other night. JT Realmuto, his value cannot be, estimated by any statistical category. That's why he definitely deserves to be an All-Star this season. You look at a guy, and this one I truly believe he's flying under the radar, is Brandon Marsh. The season Brandon Marsh is having, it'd be criminal for him not to be an All-Star in the National League. He leads the MLB in batting average. He's having a career season. His OPS is almost at 850. His average, like I said, leads Major League Baseball. He's hitting for power. He has his 5 home runs. He's driving in runs. He's been all the way elevated to the 4th spot of the Phillies lineup. He's been one of the Phillies' best hitters on a team that is a playoff team. I think that's to count for something. Brandon Marsh has been one of the best outfielders in the National League. I would say 6 to 7 outfielders make the All-Star game in the National League. Brandon Marsh should definitely be one of them. I can't say there are 6 or 7 outfielders better than Brandon Marsh who deserve to be All-Stars over Brandon Marsh. Brandon Marsh should be in the All-Star game, and if he's not, it would be a crime. Also, you got a guy like Kyle Schwarber, who's been really, really good this season. I think the choice is very clear between him and Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani's very good. He's not putting up Kyle Schwarber numbers this season. His OPS is lower. His average might be higher, but he's driving in less runs. He has less home runs. He's not playing every day compared to Schwarber. The Phillies have never had to bench Schwarber because his offense wasn't good. The Dodgers had to do that for Ohtani this season. All-Stars don't usually get benched because their offense isn't good. That's all I'm going to say. That's why Kyle Schwarber should be an All-Star this season. As well as you have, a guy like Adolis Garcia. His defense has been really good. His offense hasn't been as good, but his defense has been really good. I think you could make a case for being in one of those, 6 All-Star spots in the outfield in the National League. And we also got a guy like Bryce Stott. The National League, second base is pretty good, but Stott has been also really good defensively this season. His average is a little lower than people would have wanted, but his defense has been through the roof. That's why I think he has an outside chance to be an All-Star. But the main guys who I would say the Phillies could get in the All-Star game when it comes to fan voting are Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, and Brandon Marsh. And I think all three of them easily deserve to be in the All-Star game for the Philadelphia Phillies this season. All right, that is towards the end of this episode, but it's time for the road ahead series preview as the Phillies get geared up to face the Chicago White Sox this weekend in Philadelphia. The White Sox 33-29 on the season, second in the American League Central Division, and they're second in the American League wildcard. A lot of people did not expect the White Sox to be this good this season. Munetaka Murakami's been incredible. Davis Martin, Colson Montgomery, Miguel Vargas, the former Dodger. This is a team that just a couple years ago had one of the worst losing streaks in Major League Baseball history, had one of the worst record in Major League Baseball history over a course of a regular season, and now they're contending for a wild card spot in an American League that's a little weaker. They have a nice cushion, 3.5 games in between them and the outside of the wild card picture. So the White Sox are coming in rolling well. Friday night tonight, Anthony Kay will get the start for the White Sox. They'll be opposed by Jesus Luzardo for the Phillies. Anthony Kay, 5-1 record, just came back over from Japan. The former Met, former Blue Jay, 3.77 ERA. Facing Luzardo in the City Connects, which could be hit or miss. First start at home as a Philly was in a City Connect against the Dodgers, was lights out. Since then has not been as good. Some of his worst starts have come in those City Connect jerseys. But he is 4-4 on the season, a 4.30 ERA. He's always pitched better on the road. And the Phillies have been winning in his starts recently. So it'd be another big one if Jesus Luzardo could come through and the Phillies could get a win in the opener of the series. Saturday is a 4:05 start. You'll see Sean Burke for the White Sox against Andrew Painter for the Phillies. Burke 2-3 record, a 3.72 ERA. We have Andrew Painter, a 1-6 record, a 5.74 ERA. But again, a little higher. You have the starts. You don't have the JT Realmuto outings. You have the blow up against the Dodgers. But again, the series. When I look at this series, this is a big get right series for Andrew Painter and for the Phillies just in general to keep this streak going. Sunday is a 1:35 start. You'll see David Sandlin making his third career start against Aaron Nola, the pitcher for the Phillies on Sunday. Nola with a 3-4 record, 5.55 ERA, has gone down after his last two starts. David Sandlin, a 1-1 record, 8.10 ERA, but again, he's only made two starts in the major leagues. So it'll be a big test for him in Philadelphia in this weekend series. Big series for both teams. Phillies getting their first look at the White Sox this season, and probably the only other time they'd play would be in the World Series. Last time the Phillies and White Sox started a series in Philadelphia was 2 years ago, but it feels like another lifetime with some of these, stat lines. Garrett Crochet was the starting pitcher for the Chicago White Sox, and Alec Bohm had a 2-home run game, right, in that same game, as Spencer Turnbull flirted with a no-hitter into the late innings. That just feels like a different world for what we're living in now. Turnbull not on the Phillies, Bohm having not his best season, and Garrett Crochet is up in Boston, right, but it's just 2 years ago. The White Sox were one of the worst teams in baseball. The Phillies were rolling, had one of their best starts in franchise history in that month of April and May of 2024. And now both teams are in much different positions, and both teams are fighting for wildcard spots with an identical record coming into this weekend series. But also, last time the Phillies played the White Sox in general was last year around the trade deadline, and the Phillies traded for Johan Duran the last time they played the Chicago White Sox. So I don't know if the Phillies are going to pull off a big trade like that in this series, but we'll see. Time will tell. Big series this weekend in South Philadelphia, but that'll wrap up episode number 43 of the Phillies Fan Podcast. Thank you for watching. I'm Jaden Harper, and I'll see you in the next one.